The tools we're going to need for today's install are a 1/2 inch torque wrench, a 1/2 inch drive socket wrench, a 17mm socket, a 5mm hex, a 3mm hex, a plastic removal tool to remove the tow hook cover, and a screwdriver to remove the original license plate bolts. Here we're going to simply start by removing the original license plate and license plate frame. Now most of the time this is going to be a flathead or Phillips head screw, and simply remove the 2 screws that are in here. If you apply pressure to the plate, it does help it from falling or scratching the front of your car. Now we're going to take our plastic removal tool so that way we do not scratch the paint on the car. Just simply pop the tow hook cover. Now this is a simple arrow clip we just need to pop out and try not to break it off. Now for the fun part. Grab your shaft and lube it up with some anti-seize. This will help with installation and removal from the bumper. Now we're going to grab our 17mm socket and tighten the shaft into the bumper nice and snug, but do not over tighten it. Now it's time to grab your torque wrench and set it to 45 foot-pounds. Once this is set, once again take the 17mm socket and we're going to tighten this down until we hit 45 foot-pounds. It should be really snug in there. Now depending on your application, you may or may not be using the spacers provided in the kit. If you do not need the spacers, then simply mount the U-bracket and put the longest stainless steel bolt through the U-bracket into the shaft. If you do need the spacers, put the bolt through the U-bracket and then however many needed spacers onto the other side. Now with this, we're just going to lightly tighten it down so that way there is still some lateral movement with the U-bracket. This is what it'll look like from above. Some bumpers will require more clearance. Now we're going to roughly line up where we want the license plate to sit. This will be able to be adjusted, but we want to try to find the right location. We have put mini slits into this bracket so that way there are an almost infinite amount of mounting solutions. Simply flip the bracket over if you need a different solution. Now of course this is going to come down totally to personal preference. However, this customer did not want to block his fog light with the license plate. He just simply wanted it offset to the side, so we decided to mount it in this location. Now once again we're going to tighten these but semi-loosely so that way there still is a tiny bit of movement in them, so that way we can fine-tune where the plate sits. And that's the beauty of the slits in our plate, is that there actually is some fine-tuning available. Now you will see here when we slightly loosen this up, you can actually adjust the angle of how the plate sits too. So you can accommodate different variances in bumpers or different additions you may have added to your bumper. Then we're going to tighten that back snug. Now for the fine tuning. We can actually move it over incrementally to get the exact location of where we want it to sit. Now there's an option of using the short or long provided bolts to mount your license plate. The short bolts are for just the license plate getting mounted, and the longer bolts are for the license plate and a plate frame to be mounted to our bracket. Now we're simply going to grab the bolts, line them up with the holes in the bracket, and screw them in place. Make sure that these are nice and snug so that way you do not lose your plate on the highway. Once those are tight, that's it. It's installed. If you need to go back and make any fine tuning, you can always just remove the license plate bolts and adjust everything without having to remove the entire kit.